Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning into today's broadcast. I'm Wayne McDonald. Thanks for being a part of New Life's Inner Circle. We're praying for you, and we're thanking God and believing God for your life and for the contribution that you make to the body of Christ. I want to talk to you today about freedom from the fear of death. I want to start out by saying this. Listen to these statistics. This was a poll that was taken by Gallup. Gallup says in this poll that 13 million Americans have had near-death experiences. Listen to this. That means when you're in a group of 25 people, which is a small group, at least one person on average out of that group of 25 has had a near-death experience. That's staggering. That's almost incomprehensible that in a small group of 25 people, you have at least one person that has had a near-death experience. Now, because of modern medicine, they're able to bring a lot of people back that have been dead for a short amount of time these days. And it happens very frequently. But that's just staggering. When I heard that stat, I had to go back and just meditate on that. The fact of the reality of every time I'm in a group of 25 people, 1 out of 25 on average have had a near-death experience. That's staggering. Okay, now I want to say to you this. It is absolutely the purpose of God to remove from every one of his children the fear of death. It says in the scripture there was a time when everyone was afraid of the fear of death. They were all their lifetime subject to bondage. They were under that fear of death. But that does not exist for you and I any longer. Dying for us is the easiest thing in the world. It's just like taking off a jacket and putting on a new one. This body of mortality is going to be clothed with immortality, and it's a gift. It has been provided by grace. But aren't those statistics just absolutely staggering? Jesus has given to us an opportunity. He's given it to every single man, every single woman that is ever born. His hands are stretched out, and he says, I welcome you to receive this gift, the price that I paid for you on the cross, the blood that I shed for you, and my stamp of approval and my certification stamp is on this by him raising from the dead, proving that death itself had no power over this new species of being, believers, born again children of God. And it's all by grace. That's enough to make any man or woman the most zealous, enthusiastic person on the face of this earth. So death has been defeated. The Apostle Paul said, "O death, where is your sting? O grave, where is your victory?" We are free from the fear of death. Now I want to talk to you just a little bit about some people that have experienced these near-death experiences. I would love to spend a lot of time on this, but I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. But this, I've preached this in messages when I've shared this topic and went into great detail. I can go at least a good hour or two just to scratch the surface in this topic. Now, I want to mention a resource. If you have not read the book by John Burks, Imagine Heaven, that's a great read. Please pick up a copy. Imagine Heaven by John Burks. There's 120 testimonies in that book of people that have had near-death experiences. They've left their body and then come back to tell. Okay, now I want to say to you, years ago, when people would have near-death experiences, specifically like in the 60s and the 70s, this mentality began to come to the surface and has been predominant. It's not as predominant as it was at one time, but it still has a stronghold in people's thinking. Many people years ago, when they'd have near-death experiences, they're gone for a while and they'd come back and they would talk about some of the things they experienced. And they'd come to the conclusion, oh, death isn't that bad, because they would say, when I left my body. Now, this is a theme with everyone that leaves their body. They all say, my senses were heightened times 10,000. They all say when I stepped outside my body, I wasn't sure if I was outside my body because I had a different type of a body. My senses were heightened. I felt more alive than ever before. But some of them, they started to cross over after they left their body, and it really wasn't horrifying to them what they were experiencing. So they'd come back and they'd say, look, dying's not a big thing. Everybody goes to heaven when they die. You got to understand, when they have just left their body and they have not all the way crossed over, it's a near-death experience. Their heart and their brain waves have stopped, yes, so they're physically out of their body and they're in a different body. They've crossed over into a different realm, but they were not there permanently. So everything that they're seeing, specifically when they're not a believer, the enemy is a deceiver on this side of eternity, and he's a deceiver on that side of eternity. Specifically, listen to me, when you haven't been on that other side that long. So people would come back with the conclusion and say, look, when we die, we all go to heaven. It doesn't line up with the scripture. Not true. Now, there is a theme with everyone that leaves their body. They all say their senses are heightened. The power of their sight, their hearing is amplified times like 1,000,000. It's almost like you're Superman when you're outside the body and you're clothed with immortality when you put on this different body. Now, I want to just share this testimony of Dr. Mary Neal. She was a surgeon. And this, you can go on to YouTube and watch her testimony. I know Pat Robinson had aired her testimony years ago. Dr. Neal, Dr. Mary Neal, she was kayaking, and she was a professional kayaker. She said she had been kayaking for many, many years. And she said during this one day she was kayaking, and she ended up getting in trouble, and she got pulled underneath a waterfall. She got pulled under the fall, she couldn't get out, and she ended up dying. And she was sucked underneath the falls, and when she left her body, she said, I stood outside my body and I stood off on the shoreline and I watched as my friends were trying to get me from underneath the falls. And they realized that I was dead. So paramedics came, and when they did come, they said that she was dead for approximately at least 30 minutes or more. She said when she left her body, she was watching all this on the shore. She's watching the team that was with her trying to get her out from underneath the falls. She said as she stood on the shoreline, she said it was as if like a door or like a portal opened. And she said, before I know it, I was just going through it. And she had an experience where she came face to face with the Lord. And her testimony has always stood out to me for a couple different reasons, but I'm going to share it. Number one, she said when she looked into the eyes of Jesus, she said she realized, and now listen, she knew the Lord ever since she was a little girl, but when she looked into the eyes of the Lord, she said, I realized I don't know him. Now, I'm not saying she wasn't born again. I'm not saying that she didn't read the Word of God, but this is what she said. She said, I realized when I looked into the face of Jesus, and I looked into those eyes, that yes, I did receive him as a child and I walked with him, but I got so busy in life that I lost intimacy with him. She said, I had knowledge of the Word. I had knowledge, probably even revelation knowledge, I'm sure. But she said, I lost that intimacy that I once had with the Lord. And she said, I didn't realize that until I looked into his eyes. So that's powerful. Whew, so powerful. But she experienced a lot of things, and then she came back. She was in her body, and she's given her testimony and her story. Okay, there's so much more in that. I'm running out of time. These podcasts go by like that. I want to mention just one more person. I could camp out here and unpack this for the next 45, 50 minutes. But Mr. Howard Storm, he was a professor. And he was with his wife. And they were on a trip. And they were overseas. and he got into trouble. He had an issue take place. Now, I have a doctor that I teach, and I explain this situation to her, and there's a specific name for it, where the gut is leaking and the acid from the gut is going to other parts of the body, and it's destroying other parts of the body. Very painful. There's a name for it. I'm not a doctor. She did tell me. One of my students is a doctor, and she did tell me the name for that. I don't remember what it's called. But he had this situation going on. This is a professor, Howard Storm. So his gut, the acid from the gut is leaking, and it's going into other parts of the body, and he's dying. The pain is just unbearable. He was in Paris with his wife, and he said they admitted him to a hospital, and he said nobody came and waited on me. I was in there, I'm laying on a bed, but no one came for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours went by, and finally, he said he died, and he said, so I'm outside my body. He said I didn't realize that I was even outside my body. He said I was looking on the table, and he said I was trying to put two and two together. I'm like, who's that on the table? And he said, at that, he said, a few people walked into the room and they said, Howard, we've been waiting for you. Come with us. And he was ticked. He said, what do you mean, come with you? He said, I've been waiting here for hours. No one has come and got me. They said, Howard, we know all about you. We know all about you. Come with us. And so he went with them. And he said, as I went with them, he said, they're very friendly at first. He said, as I went with them, he said, they began to become a little more aggressive with me. He said, when I began to ask them questions, where are you taking me? And he said, they began to say, shut up, stop talking. And he said, as we got further and further away, he said, I realized it started to become darker and darker. And what literally took place as he went further and further with them, he said, it got more dark and darker. And he said, all of a sudden, terror started to grip my heart. And what he said was they began to mock him, and they actually began to abuse him. Okay? And what happened was he got the thought in the middle of this, as this terror is beginning to strike his heart, he's beginning to realize things are going bad, and things are going bad very quick. He got the thought, cry out to God. And his next thought was, I don't believe in God. This is a professor. He's an atheist. He says, I don't believe in God. And he said, out of his spirit, when he was a young little boy, his neighbor took him to Sunday school. And he sung the song, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. He begins to cry out to Jesus, and he says, that quick. He said, all of a sudden, he was enveloped by the glory of God. And he said, these hands came around me. He said, it was Jesus himself. He said, I could see the scars in his hands and the scar in his side. And he said, he embraced me. And he said, he literally put me back together, because these beings, demonic spirits, fallen angels, whatever you want to call them, these evil beings were literally destroying his body. They were biting him. They were abusing him. He said, I can't even communicate. And he says, I only go so far communicating what they did to me because it was so horrendous. Can't even put it into words. And he said, the more pain I felt, the more they just were energized by it. So he said, as he cried out, the Lord enveloped him and literally put him back together. And then I don't have the time to go into all the details. You can listen to the testimony of Howard Storm. It's on YouTube. You can listen to his testimony. The Lord gave him grace and mercy, and he was able to come back. He was back in his body. When he told his wife what took place, she thought he was crazy. The associates he worked with at his college, the other professors thought he was crazy. But it so impacted him, he became a pastor and went into the ministry because it so impacted him. He said too, when he stepped out of his body, his senses were so alive and heightened. It was absolutely powerful, it was amazing. So the reality is, when you're a believer, we can say what Paul said, "O death, where is your sting? O grave, where is your victory?" There's going to come a day when you stand before the Lord. And there's another theme in this. They all said that there's a waiting party. When you arrive, the people that you built relationships with on the earth, other family members, they know you're coming and they're there, and there's a greeting party. Now they all of them across the board, as you listen to the testimonies of these people, they all say there was a greeting party. And they also say at one point, when you stand before the Lord, they call it what's referred to as like a life review. And what it is, they said, it goes by like that. They said, when you look into the eyes of Jesus, and all of a sudden he's just reading you, right through you. And by the way, when you're communicating there in that realm, you don't need to communicate with words. You're reading one another. There's no opportunity for misunderstanding. You're already knowing what's going on the inside of the person without them saying a word. So it's a different type, it's a higher level of communication. He said, when you meet the eyes of Jesus and he's reading you, and that life review, if you want to put it like that, that's what they all said, it's like a life review. He's reading your whole life, and you're seeing what could have been. Pastor talked about that on Sunday. He mentioned that a little bit. He talked about it in context of people that were in hell. He talked about a man in the Bible who could see Lazarus afar off, and he said he saw Lazarus. And he said, Father Abraham, he's speaking to Abraham, he said, just have Lazarus come and just, dip his hand in some water and just, cool this tongue of mine. I'm tormented in these flames day and night. But Pastor said on Sunday, he said, that would be hellish. Looking, and you could see in the distance Lazarus, and thinking, what could have been in my life if I would have surrendered my life to the King of Glory? And what would be in your life if you would surrender your life, if you would not sit on a fence spiritually, but really get on fire for the King and live for him wholeheartedly? Because we're all going to go through a life review. They said it wasn't like Jesus was condemning them, because his blood has already been applied to their lives when they're believers. But he said it was like, this is what could be. And what means the most to the Lord, they all said this, and there's so many more testimonies and stories I could share with you. They all said that what means the most to the Lord is us loving people. That's what matters the most. Everything else, the things that we count as of such a high value, we give escalades to it, it means zero to the Lord. He wasn't even interested. In the case of Howard Storm, Professor Storm, he said the things that meant the most to him, the accomplishments that he accomplished in life, his big awards, he said the Lord didn't even show him those. And he would say, hey, stop here. This is when I received this reward. And the Lord said, that's not why you're here. That's not what matters. Jesus was focused on, listen to this, and I'm closing with this. The Lord brought back to when Howard Storm was being ministered to by Jesus. Jesus pointed out a situation when he was younger and his sister was crying. She was in her room crying, and Howard went in there and held her and said, it's going to be okay. That's what meant everything to Jesus. And I'm telling you, that's what means everything to Jesus today. So I could keep going, but the bottom line is we don't have to be afraid of dying. Oh, death, where is your sting? Oh, grave, where is your victory? Death has been swallowed up in victory. Glory to God. Well, thanks so much for being a part of the circle on this Mountain Moving Monday. Don't forget to subscribe, share these videos with others, because they transform lives. Remember to log on to newlifeworldoutreach.org. You can watch our services live and be a part of what God is doing there at New Life. Well, the pastors will be ministering to you the rest of the week. Pastor Ron and Pastor Steve and Pastor John, Pastor Ricky, Pastor Tony. We love you guys. We're praying for you. Have a great day.